Hey friends, thanks for stopping by for another video. I hope you're all doing splendid today. But today's video is going to be a book chat covering the Forward collection, which is just a collection of short stories by some well-known authors ranging from like 20 to 50 pages, and I flew through them. Overall, I can't remember where I actually kind of heard about this collection. I think I was just kind of browsing Amazon and just saw that they kind of collected these different authors or no, Blake Crouch kind of collected these authors and kind of reached out to them to kind of write a little short story covering like a sci-fi topic, and it just like some of the authors I really wanted to check out, or I wanted to check out more of them. There's like Blake Crouch, Veronica Roth, N.K. Jemisin, like some well-known authors, Andy Weir. So I mean, all of them had kind of, I will say, like a deeper meaning or kind of something to gain from them in their kind of short stories. There was some deeper meanings and kind of hidden truths and stuff like that spread throughout them. But I'm just gonna go through quickly and give you my thoughts on each one, because I'm not gonna go much in depth because, like I said, they're like ranging from 20 to 50 pages. But just like overall, like they were really great and kind of like a quick read if you're looking for just a little bit of sci-fi. That first one is going to be Arc by Veronica Roth. You might recognize that name from the Divergent series, and I've read that and I really enjoyed that. But this one, it was really interesting how she kind of took this take on kind of like an end of the world scenario where this asteroid is kind of on the brink of destroying Earth, and the only remaining kind of people on Earth, everyone else is left and they're waiting on these ships in space, and the only remaining people are these orphans, and the only reason that they're the kind of remaining humans is because they kind of have no family to kind of look forward to them, so that's sad. But in case like the asteroid kind of makes a kind of early arrival and they're not able to make it, so they're the only remaining kind of scientists, and what they're doing is kind of logging this flora and kind of the different plants to put on this remaining ship with them as they leave. But we're following this one perspective, Samantha, who has chosen to kind of not go on this ship, and at the end of their kind of expedition, kind of logging these different flora, and just through her journey kind of forming these bonds with these orphans, and she meets another kind of older gentleman, older scientist, that kind of they form a really special bond, and it was really heartwarming to see. Kind of, it was almost like a fatherly and kind of daughter kind of bond, and they were able to kind of bond over similar things and the flowers. And just at the end, whenever like her final decision was made, and you kind of connect the dots, it was just really kind of heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time. And it was just like, I think it was only like 30 pages, so I won't go much more in depth, but it was just like kind of emotional there at the end, and it was a great kind of short story. Next up, we have Summer Frost by Blake Crouch. I really enjoyed both Dark Matter and Recursion by him, and after reading this, I can officially say I am more terrified of AI and the future of AI. I do not look forward to life with them in the future if they kind of end up like this. But it's following Riley as a perspective as she kind of works on this kind of game development, and she goes into this kind of AI, or not AI, VR kind of system to bring out this one kind of AI that's kind of started to get a little smarter and kind of break the rules in the game. And she goes in there, breaks Max out, that's the AI's name, and kind of brings her out, or brings them out into the real world to kind of watch and grow them in their kind of journey. But the story is mainly kind of following Max as they grow and kind of learn more about humans and just expand their knowledge. And it gets really scary after a couple pages of like seeing their growth. Without going into spoilers, it was really kind of hard to get a read on Max. Like, she could be good and then she could be bad, and you don't know until the very end. And even there at the end, like, it just gets really crazy. And like, even like just at the beginning, once Max starts to kind of grow and just continue to learn more and more each day, as kind of Riley lets her kind of expand her horizons and kind of gives her more rope, essentially, because like they don't want them to kind of go out of control and just take over everything. And just seeing the growth, once the growth kind of starts, like it gets really fast paced, and then like I wasn't able to kind of put it down. But it kind of really touched on some other sci-fi topics that I was really interested in, kind of like more AI topics and kind of transportation and just video games and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really interesting, and overall I really enjoyed it. I think this was probably my favorite of the collection. Next up was Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin, and I really enjoyed The City We Became by her, and I really want to check out more from her. But this one, it was really interesting to me in the beginning, like once I first saw it, like it's following this kind of like explorer who is coming back to Earth like centuries later, and he's kind of discovering kind of what was left, or what kind of happened to it after humans had fled from like climate change and the effects of kind of global warming and kind of the destruction of Earth. And this explorer is coming back and discovering that things aren't how he was kind of taught by his kind of masters or kind of his leaders. They kind of told him that it's just like a ruined landscape, and once he gets there, he kind of starts to learn more about like what's really going on there. But like I was really disappointed, like based on like the kind of premise. I thought that it was going to be like a fast-paced kind of like action where he wasn't kind of like if you've seen After Earth with Will Smith and Jaden Smith. I thought it was going to be kind of like that, where he was constantly on the run from like other monsters or kind of like humans that just were hunting him down. But it wasn't that. It was mainly him kind of just exploring there's just the newer version of Earth and what it really kind of could look like in the future. But like I will say that it had like a really deep meaning, and something that I really valued and got out of the story was that once we all kind of come together and just work together and kind of take our differences and put them aside, like we're able to accomplish like great things. And it just touched on a lot of those kind of important topics, and that was the main thing that I really liked out of it. But other than that, like I was really disappointed with just like the way it was going and just like everything else that was kind of going on with it. Like I thought it was interesting how it kind of displayed this kind of future version of Earth and what we could really look like. But other than that, like it was kind of disappointing. And just in general, like the explorer never really talks to kind of the humans that he encounters. It's mainly like the AI. This AI is kind of in his brain and kind of controls his decisions a little bit. And he's just speaking for the kind of explorer. So it was hard to kind of read that. Like the writing style kind of was a little bit difficult to grasp in the beginning. So kind of know that going in, that it's just this AI kind of talking through the eyes of this explorer. But overall, it wasn't that bad. I was kind of expecting more from N.K. Jemisin, but it was still good, and it had a deeper meaning, like I mentioned. This next one I would say is probably my least favorite of the collection, and that was You Have Arrived at Your Destination by Immortals. I just didn't really enjoy it at all. Like it wasn't the best. Like it was just not good in my opinion at all. It's kind of centered around this kind of plot where you can essentially kind of, you know how nowadays like you can go in and kind of like a genetics bank and kind of choose like what genetics and what traits will kind of play out in your children. But this one kind of takes a different spin on it, where you can go and like kind of choose all your genetics and the traits that your kind of children will have. But then it takes it another step, and you can actually kind of choose like a pathway of what your kind of child will actually kind of go on, and you basically get to see what their pathways will kind of look like. And it just goes this one perspective. I believe his name is what is his name? I can't remember what his name is, but he is going to this kind of bank, this genetics kind of lab, and that he's just basically watching like what his son's lives could be. There's three different possibilities, and he's just like watching them. So I thought it was boring that like there wasn't anything else except for him just like watching the possible outcomes of what his child's life would be like. But I guess there's a deeper meaning in that. Would like, if you had the opportunity to kind of choose the life for your children, like would you choose that, or would you kind of just like let them play it out? So other than that, like it was really kind of boring. And then at the end, there was this one point where like it could have gone like a way that would have made it so much more interesting. But then it just kind of forgot about it and pushed it off to the side, and then the story ended, so I was like really disappointed by that. But yeah, I would say that this was probably my least favorite of the collection. Next up is The Last Conversation by Paul Tremblay. And I've heard a lot about this author. I hear he's a very kind of expansive in the horror genre, but I haven't really checked out any of his books. I think, is it The Cabin at the End of the World is kind of one of his well-known ones, and I really want to get to that eventually. But this one, like, I wasn't sure what was really going to happen, because at the beginning, like, you kind of wake up this perspective. Yeah, it's you. You're the perspective, because you don't really know your name, and it kind of has this blip where you kind of insert your name into it. So basically, you're the perspective, and you wake up in this dark room with kind of no one, like, your memory is kind of lost, and you have no muscle kind of control, and basically it's just a journey as you kind of learn more and kind of grow, and just kind of, yeah, I can't really go into much depth without spoiling it, but it's very similar. I thought this was very kind of crazy. It's kind of like similar to 10 Cloverfield Lane, how you're kind of like there's this other person that's kind of controlling like the variables, and kind of you're kind of learning and stuff like that, but it's outside the room. You're trapped in this room, and you really don't know who they are and kind of what they're doing. But basically they tell you that this kind of like pandemic and sickness has kind of ravaged the world, and you don't really know what they're trying to do with you. And then as the kind of story progresses, you start to learn more about the past, as kind of this mysterious person kind of gives you past memories and explains things a little bit more. And then at the end, like, I was like, the way it went, I was really confused as to like what the point of that was. But like, it was still pretty interesting to kind of connect that to 10 Cloverfield Lane, because I kind of enjoyed that movie. But other than that, like, it was kind of, yeah, like, forgettable. I didn't really enjoy it at all. I was expecting it to be a little bit more kind of horrific and kind of scary, but it wasn't at all. But yeah, I thought it was crazy that it kind of touched on a pandemic, and we're currently in a pandemic, or the end of it. So I thought that was interesting. But other than that, like, still wasn't like the best. I wouldn't say it was the worst, but it was still kind of down there. And the last one of the collection is by one of my favorite authors, Andy Weir, and that is Randomize. And this one was probably my second least favorite of the collection, and that's sad to say. Like, this one's only like 25 pages, and I think it could have been so much better if it was kind of just a little bit longer, and the kind of plot was kind of taken like a little bit like expanded on. But this one is basically kind of like an Ocean's 11, kind of hacking into kind of the casino, and kind of the majority of the story is just explaining how complex like the casino's kind of security systems and networks are all kind of complex, and how hard it would be to kind of break into them. And then it kind of explained a little bit of how the background, like how they're going to do it. And then the last kind of 10 or 5 pages is just like the operation and kind of conducting this like heist, and then it just ends. And I was really disappointed with how kind of the majority of it was spent on the science instead of like the actual heist. I thought if it would have expanded more on the heist, it would have been so much better. But yeah, I was really disappointed. It felt like almost like Andy Weir didn't care. Like, it was still like okay. Like, I don't know, maybe he did and he just was struggling, or he was writing Project Hail Mary. We never know. But like, it was just, I was expecting so much more from it, and if it just expanded a little bit more on that heist, so much more better. But those are just my thoughts on all of the collection. They're really great. I would recommend you check them out. They're just really quick reads, and you could read one like once a month, or just pick some out of your kind of favorite authors, but definitely give it a try. I believe it's included in kind of Kindle Unlimited, or I think it's just like $1.99 for like the whole collection or something. But that's all for today's book chat. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you check these out if they sound interesting to you. But I'm going to leave you today with a message from Ellie, who said that. What did she say? Adventure is out there. So I'll catch you next time. Bye.